I want to talk about 3 tips for finding a really hot public land hunting spot. And I've used this over and over again, especially out in Pennsylvania, Michigan, where I've public land hunted for a long time, both those states. Last year was my 21st season hunting Pennsylvania on public land since '93. And I've hunted Michigan public land since the 90s, so consistently. Last time was 2 years ago with my son Jake. I want to talk about finding a spot, and then also what you're looking for to actually indicate that you should go in and actually hunt that spot. One of the things, you're looking from the air. It's different on private land. You're trying to create diversity. The cool thing about public land, there's not a lot of diversity. What that means is if you find diversity, then you're going to find great deer herds, wildlife populations in general. Diversity, what does that mean?
Well, I could be wrong, but I believe diversity is an old wooden ship.
If you have lowland water, you have certain type of habitat. If you have hardwood upland area, hardwood rolling hills, big giant hardwoods, even if it's on flat land, of course, a different type of habitat. If you have areas that have been cut within those hardwoods, different type of habitat. Upland cover, where you've had cuttings, maybe they got over browse coming back, but now all of a sudden you have shrubs, small conifers, trees, grasses, briars. When you find that all coming together, you find a great spot to hunt. Looking at an aerial photo, when you look at hunt-wise, it's kind of cool because we can choose from several different overlays for aerial photos. One of them will have a really high resolution and it'll show a lot of contrast between the portions of habitat that are there. If you give you an example, you look at some of the May flyovers, June flyovers, and it'll take aerial photos. At that time, the oak trees are the last ones to leaf out. And a lot of times, even though that leaf will be green, they might start out red, brownish to begin with before they fully open up into a green, mature leaf. So when you look at an aerial photo from a flyover like that, you can pick out all the oak tops because that's the one color that isn't green during that May flyover. Those oaks actually leaf out after every other tree. Of course, the conifers are green. You can see those year round. If you're looking at that, that's one thing. You can tell, yeah, there's oaks in this stand of hardwoods. You take it a step further. Look at the big tops versus the little tops versus the scattered tops. Scattered tops would be more like an upland area. And then you look at the big smears of like, there's river going through and you see, well, that's all tag alder, or that's all conifer, or that's young hardwoods versus old hardwoods. And if you look at a lot of those flyovers that are May time, then you can say, well, that is a great spot to hunt based on the fact there's some good acorn tops in that location and they're big and mature and they're probably dropping mass crop. And I'll even take it, this is a little secret we look for, and I won't even tell you where we've hunted when we use this, but when we're looking at big public land areas that have clear cuts. Now they might have like state land, a really good patch of cuttings over a large area, tens of thousands of acres. They might cut a few thousand every year and they rotate that. When you look at that, the trails from the logging operation within those cuttings will appear bright white if they're new. As that clear cut ages, those trails become diminished to where they just become faint lines between green patches of woods. Generally, you want clear cuts that are less than 5 years old so they still have enough food and that browse is not grown out of the reach of the deer. They can find cover anywhere out in these public land areas. What they can't find is food. So if that food is grown over their height that they can reach, then they're not going to be there. So young clear cuts are the name of the game, and those deer can sometimes be nomadic in those areas, meaning this hot clear cut here we've seen before is not hot the next year because they all moved to a fresh clear cut 2 miles away, and that can happen. So that's an added complexity to all of this. So look for that diversity. There's not a lot of it, and a lot of times you can look at 10,000 acres and you'll narrow it down to 10, 15 areas to scout, and then what are you looking for? I'm looking for old historical sign, and this is a good example. Look at this red cedar tree. Oh, it's been rubbed on this side to where it's smooth. And that's the side facing the trail, that makes sense. You come over here, you can see it was rubbed in this location before. But when you see this almost carved out and there's no bark in this location, it tells you it's been rubbed not only for 1 year, but multiple years. So I'm looking at an area and I'm saying, I want to see this historical sign. I want to see that there's a lot of rubs in this area. So I'm coming in here, and even this spot in the woods, this red cedar, shagbark hickory, young brush. We have a big white oak right here. There's grasses and briars right down here. You can see there's a lot of diversity in this location. It doesn't matter if it's flat or hillside country, you're just looking for that diversity. And then you come down to here. This is another complementary rub to this area. And I'm looking at that. Not only does it have that old rub on this side, but it's been freshly rubbed. And this one's almost carved out. If you look at this tree, it's like a bow here. It's been rubbed a lot. So I'm looking at that historical sign. I can think of an old rub down in up in the UP of Michigan. You even see these shavings. Obviously, you know it's from last year. But I'm thinking of rub out in the swamps in the UP of Michigan. It's on an old jack pine. And when there's been a fresh rub on that jack pine, and there's not a lot of rubs up there. When you get around a bait pile, a lot of rubs. But when you're out in the middle of the wilderness area and you find a rub, it means something. And it might mean they've only rubbed it once a year. You know, rubs don't get that often. I apologize for cutting in the video. I'll try to keep this 20 seconds or less. But we're thinking about planting, and so is Lincoln at Packermaxx. And right now he doesn't offer very many deals. It's $50 off. Check out the code WHS50. It's in the link in the description. Try them. Great product. Check it out. You won't be sorry. You know, rubs don't get that often. But when you see a historical rub, and I go out to that jack pine out in the middle of nowhere, and I see it's been hit that year, then it indicates that there's a mature buck in the area. So imagine you find those 10, 12 areas, 6 or 7 of those areas out of 10,000 acres. So we're talking a big area, miles apart. You have that historical sign. You've done your homework, you found the diversity. You can see those pinch points that go through that diversity. And it might be a bench system on a hill, it might be where a corner of a big swamp meets hardwoods, inside corner, almost like an ag field. You're hunting there and there'll be an X of movement. So you've identified those areas of diversity from the aerial photo. You've gone in, you've verified a historical sign. And the third step, how do you know when to hunt it or if to hunt it? I call it an indicator. You look for indicator sign. Indicator rubs, indicator scrapes. You find those perennial scrapes in those locations. We have little islands out in the UP of Michigan where we hunt. We have oak flats in areas in Pennsylvania where we hunt. Not every year do those areas have rubs, even though they're great places to hunt. There's been one area in Michigan on public land where we shot 148-inch 8-point out on public land. Beautiful, older, mature buck. But that was when there were good indicator scrapes and indicator rubs in that same area. But when they're not there, there's typically not a buck there. It's not indicating that there's actually a buck in that location. So you can really speed scout these areas. You look for diversity. That can be done before you ever go out to an area. You take one weekend on a Saturday, you hit all those 10, 12 locations, or a Saturday and a Sunday. It might be that it's 10 hours away from home. You go down there, yep, half of these areas have old historical sign on it, and they should if you found that diversity. Then you go back, let's say you're hunting opening day of muzzleloader, or opening day of gun season, or opening day, or right before the rut. Go in there and check out each one of those areas. Maybe a windy day, a rainy day. Look for indicator rubs and indicator scrapes being open, and that's where you know where to hunt. That's what I did in Pennsylvania for many years. Used to be the season would open on the Monday after Thanksgiving. So that means Saturday we'd get out there, Sunday we'd walk around sometimes 10 to 12 miles in one day, look at those areas of indication, find the indicator rubs and scrapes in those areas. If they're open, consider hunting there. And then I base it on what's the size of the rub. You can tell this one right here, it broke right over. But this size rub alone doesn't make me want to hunt it. When I see these giant rubs, like these really big rubs like this, and they've been carved out along with these broken ones, there's a few more up the hill over here, then that's telling me, hey, there's a big buck in this area. And that's how I narrow it down. And then at least put yourself in position. You should already have the access, entrance, exit routes to that area, different potential stand locations based on wind figured out. That's just a matter of plug and play. You just go in there, there's indicator rubs and scrapes open, and you hunt. Pretty easy to do on public land. That's a really good way. And then you look at it like, maybe this is, you're gonna hunt there for a week, and you can get pretty invasive and aggressive. Well, this is outside of a bedding area. This is in a funnel between bedding and food. Start saying, well, I might want to, later in the week, I want to get get closer to that bedding area because they're getting to the food source late. You can start to get aggressive. However, if you found these pinch points and funnels between bedding areas and food sources alongside a bedding area, maybe it pays even a little bit better. You're going to hunt this several different times over the course of a season to come in with the right access, right entrance, right exit, have your predetermined stand location possibilities, and then you come in and hunt with the right wind, chip away at it through the season, actually manage the hunt of that area as opposed to just going in and exhausting it. There's a difference between management and exhausting an area. Exhausting an area, you're going to only hunt here for several days for that year. Go in and hit it hard. But if you actually have to manage it and hunt that area over a 2 or 3 month period, then you actually take your time, you're patient, actually look at the lay of the land, make sure you're not spooking deer, and get in there and chip away at it. You'll eventually get that buck that's making that sign. Big difference between just going in, wandering around, spooking all the deer. You actually have predetermined locations, and then when you're going to even check and see if these are open. I'm going directly to this area. I'm looking from above with the binoculars, 80, 100 yards away, probably public lane. You might be able to look at it 200 yards away. So yep, I see broken branches, I see rubs open. You don't even have to walk in here. You already know your approach. You've already approached from the right wind, like you're actually coming in to hunt. Get out of there, hunt the next day, whatever, next day, opening day that weekend, and have a good hunt. So again, just repeat real quick. Look at that diversity from above. Identify a certain number of areas you got to go check out. Understand those funnels, make sure they're away from people. They're in those interior areas. Go in and verify. Find which areas have a historical sign, and then come back, look for those indicator rubs and scrapes, and then go in and have a great hunt.